Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for the Fell Court of Troya. This is the newest dungeon made available by patch 6.2 in Final Fantasy XIV, Buried Memories. If you're Troying to clear this dungeon but find yourself in over your head, I'm here to bring you back down to Earth and help you really zero in on these mechanics. My name is Ms. Tech and I'll be your dungeon guide. The first set of trash pulls consist of multiple mobs that will throw out AoE attacks. Watch your feet as you burn everything down. As you approach the first boss platform, Beatrice will disappear and a number of evil dreamer heads will appear in her place. Multiple waves of adds will appear throughout this encounter and the group should stack together to help the tank pick everything up. The second wave of heads will have a number of unforgettable heads appear on the edge of the arena. These heads will shoot across the platform in a straight line in front of them, and players will have to move out from in front of them to avoid getting hit. Immediately after the blast, the edge heads will become targetable and the tank will have to pick them up, while the rest of the group burns them down. During the third wave of adds, players will also be targeted by AoE circles. They'll need to dodge the attacks from the heads on the edge while also spreading apart to avoid overlapping circles. The next wave will have the heads on the edge shoot through the entire platform with only one safe side. However, 6 large heads will also appear that will cast massive AoE circles that will cover the entirety of the platform. Players will first have to identify which side of the room has the safe spot from the heads on the edge and target the big head casting in that area. They'll need to destroy this add to form a safe zone before the casts go off. Be sure to pick up all of the adds afterwards and burn them down. In the final wave, a massive head will form in the center and begin to cast Endless Nightmare. Players will need to destroy this head before this cast goes off. At the same time, smaller heads will appear around the center, each casting an AoE circle. More unforgettable heads will appear and tether to one of these circle adds. Once the tethered heads reach the add, its AoE circle will expand considerably. Players will need to move away from this tethered head AoE while they continue to burn down the giant head. These mini phases of exploding circle AoE heads will continue until the boss is destroyed. In the next section of trash, tanks will have a number of large mobs to pull and hold onto while the group burns them down. Don't forget your cooldowns and watch your feet for those AoE attacks. The second boss has us fighting Beatrice directly. She will jump into the center and cast Eye of Troya. A gaze attack ring will appear on the outer edge and move in towards the boss. Once this ring reaches the boss, the attack will go off and players will need to look away to avoid getting hit. Beatific Scorn will burn 4 lines into the platform that will explode in the order that they were created. The circles on the platform indicate how wide the explosion of each line will be. As such, players will need to move away from the first line created until it explodes, before moving into that area to avoid the rest of the explosions. An easy way to do this is to stand near the last line created in the center before dodging into the safe zone after the first explosion. Hush will target the primary target with a moderate damage hitting tank buster. Cooldown and heal as necessary. The boss can jump into the center, turn to a random player, and cast Void Shaker. All players will need to move out of this area. At the same time, players will be marked with these AoE circles and should spread apart to avoid overlap. The next Eye of Troya cast will have multiple gaze circles forming and shrinking. When all of the eyes of each ring shrink enough to touch, the gaze attacks will go off from those areas and players will have to make sure to look away to avoid getting hit. While this is happening, the boss is casting Toric Void and ring AoEs will form around her. Players will have to handle overlapping mechanics while the arena space is limited by this ring until it explodes. This version of Beatific Scorn will target one player with a stack up marker. Stand with them to share the incoming damage. At this point, mechanics will repeat until the boss is down. The last section of trash has more mobs and more AoEs to dodge. Enjoy the view as you burn everything down. The final boss is Scarmiglione. Cursed Echo will deal high raid-wide damage that will also place a 12-second bleed on all players. Healers be ready. Rotten Rampage will cause a number of AoE circles to appear randomly over the platform. Move out of these to avoid getting hit. All players will also be marked by these AoE circles. Spread these apart to avoid overlap as you continue to dodge the ground attacks. Once hit by this attack, players will gain 1 stack of Brain Rot. If this stack gets too high, you will lose control of your character. Blighted Bedevilment will form a lethal circle underneath the boss that players must avoid. At the same time, players will have to identify where the walls of the arena remain and move their characters to stand in line with one of them. The boss will deal a massive knockback at this time, and if you don't get stopped by the wall, you'll get knocked into the poop on the outside of the arena and get debuffed. When the boss casts Blighted Blade Work, he'll leap up into the air and target a section of the platform with this red line. Players will need to move away from this area as the boss will soon jump there, dealing massive damage and debuffs in a massive circle attack. Immediately after, the boss will turn around and cast Blighted Sweep. All players will need to run behind him at this time to avoid getting hit. Fire Damp will target the primary target for high damage. Cooldown and heal as necessary. The boss will jump to an edge and cast Creeping Decay. This will spawn a number of adds around the platform that the tank will need to pick up as soon as possible. The boss will become invulnerable during this time and start building up his power gauge. The group will need to destroy the adds before the gauge reaches 100. As they do this, a number of circle AoEs stack markers will appear that must be handled accordingly. Once all of the adds are down, the boss will cast his ultimate attack that will deal damage based on his power level. Shield and heal through the damage. At this point, the encounter will resume and mechanics will repeat until the boss is down. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Up next, we'll head into the new normal raids. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time.